Uh, we are going to discuss Schiller chapter 8, questions 2, 3, 6, and 7, and then problems 5 and 6. We will start with the questions. Number 2, why does the opportunity cost of doing homework increases as you spend more time doing it? Well, when you spend time or any resource to accomplish anything, eventually the impact or the power of that resource, in this case time, will fizzle out. And that's the essence of the law of diminishing returns. Here, we are using time as an input, and we are looking at the outcome, which is learning experience. And as you spend more time, you could imagine, let's say these are increments of half hour or 1 hour, perhaps initially your learning experience will improve dramatically. And then over time, as you spend more time, the impact of spending more time to learn more uh, about the subject begins to wear out. partly, partly because you're getting tired, partly because you've already learned a lot, and more you learn about the topic, increasingly there is less and less to cover. So eventually, you reach a point where you hit the plateau, and at that point, you've spent a certain number of hours, and your marginal productivity will cease to improve. So initially, when you spend time, if you can imagine, the marginal physical product is what you learn. It will accelerate and eventually decelerate and then reach a plateau. So in essence, uh, the opportunity cost of spending these last hour or so will increase because with your time at that toward the end, you could use that time doing something else that you are giving up. So that's why the opportunity cost associated with studying, or for that matter, any activity, will increase as you push to the limit of your abilities and the resources that you have available to you. Question number 3. How does supply and demand explain the wage gap between engineers and sociology majors? Well, this is a, let's say, market for engineers. This is the quantity, and this is their salary or wages. There's a demand and a supply. And this is, let's say, typically they make $50,000 per year. Now, if you look at the market for sociology majors, again, quantity of sociology graduates, and this is their wages. And when you look at the supply and demand, for one thing, you could argue that the demand for sociology majors is very price sensitive. People uh, can maybe interview dozens before they pick one. So therefore, that would be the demand for sociology majors. To become a sociologist or get a degree in sociology is perhaps is not as rigorous as trying to obtain a degree in engineering. So therefore, even the supply curve is not as steep, and that will end up with perhaps, let's say, average salary of $25,000 per year, and this would be the equilibrium. So this is how you can use the market uh, model to determine the differences in salary gap. Again, the demand here is lower and more price sensitive as those who hire graduates with sociology degree perhaps interview or shop around for dozens before they pick one. Engineers, on the other hand, are harder to come by, and therefore the demand is less price sensitive for what they ask in terms of wages and salaries. And then the supply curve is steeper, reflecting that it costs more time and resource to train someone as an engineer. And so that explains why the market offers higher wages for engineers as opposed to sociology majors. Question number 6. Uh, the United Farm Workers want strawberry pickers to join their union. They hope then to convince consumers to buy only union strawberries. Will such activities raise pickers' wages? Well, if you form a union and those who join or are able to join obviously get a higher wage. So if this is a market clearing wage, unions would set the wage higher. So this would be wage union, and this would be WE, equilibrium wage. So for that, if the union set the wage higher than the equilibrium or market clearing, then the demand for the number of workers will be here as opposed to the equilibrium. And so there will be some loss in employment opportunity, but those who are employed will earn higher wages. Now, if the union spends money and campaign to encourage consumers to buy a union-picked strawberries, and if that campaign is successful, then here is a market for strawberries. Surprise. There's a demand and a supply. If the campaign is successful to purchase union strawberries, then the demand for those strawberries will be different. Price will rise for union-picked strawberries because people are willing to pay extra to see their brothers and sisters have a better paying job. So if that's the case, then you can imagine that if you're a strawberry farmer, your marginal revenue product, which is equal to marginal physical product times price of strawberries. Here, in this case, if the price of strawberries go up due to the fact that some people are willing to buy or pay extra for union-picked strawberries, then the revenue will increase. And so in that case, they may be willing to hire more workers to pick strawberries as long as people are willing to purchase those. And in that case, for the union, you will see that if the marginal revenue product of the unionized strawberry pickers is higher due to higher prices, then perhaps the demand for the rank and file will also increase. And in that case, they can perhaps create sufficient jobs uh, to create opportunities for those who were left behind. So there is a sort of an interaction of these markets for unionized strawberry uh, pickers. Question number 7. Explain why marginal physical product would diminish as more secretaries are hired in an office and B, more professors are hired in economics department. Well, that goes back to the law of diminishing returns again. In this case, you have a quantity of the secretaries, and this would be that you hire as input, and here is work done by secretaries, uh, work performed by secretaries. So as you hire more secretaries in the office, the marginal productivity will eventually diminish. You can see here the rate of changing what they do will diminish. And so this is again is true not only for secretaries but for professors and for that matter any other resource. That as more of these resources are employed, the contribution to the output, professors teach economics or secretaries perform secretarial activities, the marginal physical product of any resource will eventually diminish. And that's something that inescapable in world, in life. And now let's touch on to questions 5 and 6. I'm sorry, problems 5 and 6. Problem 5 in figure 8.7, how many workers lose their jobs when minimum wage is enacted? So uh, 8.7 figure, okay. Here when the minimum wage is enacted, and that happens to be above the equilibrium, here I'm going to reproduce this graph. So you have a supply and demand. This is the wage equilibrium, and this would be the wage minimum. Okay. This was original market clearing, and now this is the new employment as a result of enactment of the minimum wage. So the job loss would be this quantity as a result of boosting the minimum wage. Uh, Part B, how many workers are unemployed at the minimum wage? In this case, of course, you would have at this wage, this many people are willing to work, but only this would be the level of employment. So at that minimum wage, you have this quantity of workers who are now unemployed. Again, some people entered in the market to supply the labor because they saw the attractiveness of the higher minimum wage. And once they're in the market and are seeking employment, they're considered as unemployed. So that's why unemployment, total unemployment will be higher. What accounts for the difference between answers to A and B? Well, in case of A, initially this was the equilibrium employment, and there was loss of this many jobs when the minimum wage was elevated. But as the minimum wage rises, some more people who supply their labor will enter the labor market, are attracted. And so therefore, when it's all said and done, you have a larger number of people that would be considered unemployed than initial, just because there's a new wave of workers who have entered the labor market. Now, problem number 6. What is the marginal revenue product of Alabama's football coach, according to the headline News on 173? On page 173, I believe this headline coaches. This coach is making 50. Was it 173, I'm sorry. Okay. He's making $65 million in 2008. So this guy's marginal revenue product is $65 million. This is sales of tickets and commercials and promotionals and merchandise, etc., etc. So that's what this individual in revenue is contributing to the bottom line of the university. And this concludes the exercise related to chapter 8.